Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is Daniel Rosehill here. I want to drop in with a quick video upload just before the start of the Shabbat here in Jerusalem. I've been running this YouTube channel for a couple of years now, and my objectives, I've talked about my objectives or why I started a YouTube channel in a couple of videos. Some people get into YouTube because they want to monetize really quickly and make a ton of money on YouTube, and that's actually never been even something on my radar. My main interest in getting into YouTube or starting this channel has been to learn about videography. My background, professional background and sort of hobbyist background has been in writing. I think I did a video this week about my my career so far. I initially wanted to be a journalist. Anyway, I always assumed video was going to be too complicated and too expensive for me to get into. So it was always something I dreamed of doing, did a little bit growing up, but never really, took it as seriously as my writing work. So it's been fascinating to learn all about video, audio, lighting, everything that goes into it. Doing this, and that's why a lot of my videos have been on the subject of the sort of, actual stuff, brass tacks is the phrase I was looking for, that goes into this production process. The second was just been open sourcing my knowledge, which is something I've done a lot of, and I will continue to upload even videos that seem pretty uninteresting for most people, just because if I know how to do something, whether it's on the computer, in an editing software, in some kind of a cloud software, I'm going to put it up. Maybe I'll look back on my own video in a few years if I forget how to do something, and maybe other people will find it and it'll benefit them. That's my rationale for doing this. Now, those are the two objectives. And the third one has been that once I felt I was good enough at video, I wanted to start producing actual proper length, proper video projects, by which I mean kind of documentary style, journalistic looks into issues. I'm a huge documentary fan and a huge news and current affairs fan. So I've been kind of waiting until I felt like my skill at video production, that I was decent enough to actually try hack something together. I know some people like to just jump in straight away with their phone. For whatever reason, it was important to me to feel like I had enough skill before, wasting someone's time on a production. So that's been something I've been working towards for a couple of years. I feel like I'm there now. I'm at that point, and I'm thinking about working on one of my first major project. It's going to be a video about the border that used to run through Jerusalem. So folks who live in Jerusalem now may not even be aware of the fact that between 1948 and 1967, the city was divided by what was called in Hebrew the Kav Ironi, the municipal line. Now, I got into a couple of heated Facebook arguments this week with people about whether that was an international border. Basically, Israel and Jordan both viewed it as an armistice line and never intended for it to be permanent. I would say that doesn't really matter. Border just means a division between two countries, whether it's intended as an international border or an armistice line. So had this debate with a few people, but basically in the midst of this debate, my main point got lost, which is that I'm really interested in the history of Jerusalem during this 19-year period. I've always thirsted for photos of what the border actually looked like. I've done a few videos of me going out to different borders in Israel, and borders are just something I've always been interested in. Kind of a geeky hobby, but there are other folks out there. I went to Nicosia in Cyprus as a kid, and I think that sort of memory of that border made an imprint on me. And actually, that's why I think I found the idea of a border running through Jerusalem very interesting, because if you look at photos of the border in Nicosia in Cyprus between Greek Cyprus and the unrecognized Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, TRNC, and you look at these historical photos of the border in Jerusalem, you'll see some commonality. It's kind of the Israeli border when Moshe Dayan and El Tel met to draw this border, a 7-kilometer border in Jerusalem. Given that neither was intending it to be a permanent border, they kind of didn't play, it wasn't the most logical border, and it ended up literally cutting through streets and neighborhoods in Jerusalem. So I find that really interesting. I find the idea that there was this border very interesting, and exactly where it was. So I've been looking on the National Archive of Israel. They've got some terrific photos. The ones I was always looking for, where you can see how they demarcated the border. I've heard there were landmines in the DMZ, because when Israel drew, they used a green line, and the Jordanians drew their armistice line in red. And there was a couple of points in Jerusalem where the green and the red didn't match up, and that created a no man's land, or a DMZ. So I'm interested in all of this, and I thought it would be a great video to see what can be found on the ground in Jerusalem today that was evidence of the former border, or even where its course lies, because this border between Israel and Jordan is still referred to as the seam zone. And even though there's no physical border anymore, immediately after Israel reunited Jerusalem in 1967, the border was taken down and the landmines were cleared. And again, this is all mentioned very casually on Wikipedia, but if you think about how momentous the fall of the Berlin Wall was, I find it quite interesting that there's scarcely any details online about the fall of the Jerusalem Wall, like how quickly did the process happen. Other details are interesting. There was a gate passing through the two sides called the Mandelbaum Gate, through which clergy passed. And during this 19-year period, Jordan was super interested in basically eliminating any Jewish traces of the city, de-Judification. But there was still a lot of Christian holy sites, so Christian clergy could go in, UN people could go in, and diplomats. It's a bit like the Rosh Hanikra border today between Israel and Lebanon, that is closed to regular transition of people, but certain special groups are still occasionally able to use it, and for that matter, the border with Syria. So that's the video I'm interested in producing, and I'll finish up here because I see I've gone a little bit over time. I'm interested in speaking to anyone who lived during that period between 48 and 67, who has a vivid recollection of the border, what the border looked like, where the border was, and especially where it was, and that they would also know where the path it took is in Jerusalem today, i.e. you can say this was where the border was. Very interested in that. Also interested in hearing on a more personal level anecdotes from people who lived in this period. What was it like to live in a city with a border running through it? Were there any illicit crossings between the two sides of the border? Could you speak to people across the border? Was the interpersonal relationships on each side of the border hostile or more friendly than the geopolitics would have you believe? So that's kind of the direction I want to go, and I want to do a video of archive footage of the border when it stood. I want to go and talk to people, interview people for sit-down video interviews about their recollection of the border and any interesting stories they have around that. And I want to show where in modern Jerusalem the border was today, because if you look at some of those photos of Kikar Tzahal at the end of Yafo Street, there's a border on the Israeli National Archive website, and it shows you a huge fortification. So that was obviously where the border lies. So you can just imagine being on the Israeli side, which would be the east side, looking over at the old city in the background, which then was all in Jordanian held East Jerusalem. So yeah, that's my call for interviews and the video I want to produce. It's going to be a somewhat big project, I hope, that I'm going to be doing in my spare time, evenings and whatnot. Thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know also what you think about the new lighting. This is the I now have a bit of blue lighting here, background lighting, the whole shebang. Thank you guys for watching, and if you want to get more videos from me, including this future forthcoming video about the border that went through Jerusalem, please do drop me a line and subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.